Attention all operators on countdown 1. This is the final go, no go for Flight 2 of Starship. Again, our T0 is at 7 a.m. Central. Raptor 1.
Go.
Raptor 2.
Go.
Stage 1.
Go.
Stage 2.
Go.
Copy, go for flight. Clock is rolling. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff.
Boost stretcher cut off. Stage separation.
Attention all operators on countdown 1. This is the final go, no go for Flight 2 of Starship.
All right. So I have no idea what the date is today, but I do know that we are less than 30 days away from Christmas. Hopefully, you don't have any incidents to deal with during the Christmas break, and you're all looking forward to some quiet time. And you know, when I say that, I'm absolutely lying, because everything wrong is going to go down when you think you have some quiet time. Welcome to Operation Defend the North, the briefing. And when I said the word quiet time, I think that's where I'm going to start from today. I'm not exactly sure which part of the upcoming Operation Defend the North that I want to talk about, but I think I'll start off with a phone call that I had just, I think it was an hour or so ago, where I was speaking to a former student of mine. And I asked them a question because they were doing some log analysis and struggling a little bit with it. And then I said, took the student's name and I said, where there is smoke, and I kept quiet, expecting them to finish the sentence. And they said, yes, when there is smoke, there's someone smoking. The thing is, we're just trying to tell you that sometimes people just look at logs and interpret things as, yeah, failed sign-in is a failed sign-in. Successful sign-in is a successful sign-in. Nothing much to look at over here. But instead, one of the things that you learn from Operation Defend the North is to question everything, to look at logs with a critical eye. Even what may not seem suspect could actually have a nugget of information that you can work with to determine where you're at in a particular incident. And I couldn't think of any more better individuals to discuss incident response than the fine individuals that have joined me for this session right now. We're going to skip introductions. We're not going to do any of that. We have about 45 to 50 minutes. And I'm going to try to make today all about how do you do incident response with a critical mind, and how do you stay sharp when you see so many different alerts. John, I want to start off with you because it's your first time on the briefing.
Gee, thanks,
John,
Ali.
You're welcome. One of the things that a lot of folks that watch ODTN tell us, listen, Ali, there's so much happening during an incident. There's so many alerts that you get that may not even reflect an incident. How do you keep your mind from a cyber perspective fresh, and how do you keep it alert given the number of logs, the number of alerts that you get? Or in other words, how does someone like yourself with so much experience prevent something like alert fatigue? John?
Well, in my case, I'm not doing it alone. I have others on my team and you have to delegate things. You have to make, assign specific, in this case, specific logs, perhaps to specific individuals, so that you're focusing on the areas that you're looking at. I mean, if you're trying to look at multiple logs at the same time, you're going to miss something, because what's in one log doesn't match what's in another log, and so on. So you really have to be focused on, individual logs, to make sure that if something seems different, it is going to alert you, because it's different than the rest of the entries in that log, versus it's different because it's from a different log.
I'll take that. And with the calm that which you speak with, calm for you is a tactic. And it's very important when you're in the exercise of Operation Defend the North to maintain some sense of calm, especially when you have an individual like Alex, whose title in Operation Defend the North is Chaos Engineer. Before we go to Alex and Jonathan, because again, we're all in the Durham region, so it's easier and quicker for me to skip from Pickering back to Pickering again, unless Mirza, you're somewhere else. I am in the Durham region as well, but Mirza, I'll come to you. When you're looking at all of these logs and you're dealing with an incident in real time, you have so many individuals looking at these logs. How do you, from your perspective, you're here as a CISO, you're hearing things from different directions. How do you prioritize all the information that you're getting? Because lots of people in your team are telling you lots of things. How do you keep your sanity, and how do you weed through all of the noise and intelligence that you're getting during an incident?
Okay. First of all, thanks, Ali, for inviting me for the session. And second, I would like to, I will not take all the compliment. I have a really brilliant world-class team, and they are superstars. They know really well what they are looking for. Now, you're talking about there's so many incidents happened this year, and I'm not alone. There's something happened like earlier in January or February with Cisco attack. There's so many other things happen in the real world in the past 8, 9 months. When we talking about logs and we talk about incidents, just let me know if I derail the conversation. Let me know. When we're talking about logs, there's so much misconception. Okay, I'm shipping it to SIM. Does it enough? Shipping it to SIM is enough or not? My question is, no, it's not enough, because first thing is you need to know what's going on. Second, is the SIM able to parse your logs? And the third thing is, okay, SIM has 2,500 use cases, but that is relevant to you as or not. My application has a different purpose and it be a different threat. So should I rely on that use cases, or should I rely on my use cases? For example, I have a WAF in front of all the applications that are exposing to the internet. This every day I am getting 10,000, more than 10,000 attacks per day, and it's very common. I'm just maybe in a very pessimistic approach, 10,000, it could be more than that, but let's say 10,000. How do I make sure that which alert I have to check? In my case, I would say, okay, what application should not do? What someone from the internet should not do to my application? And I will make a use case. For example, my application, if someone is coming from the internet, getting into the login, or maybe without logging to the application, they delete something. So it means I'm not very, I would say, bother of attentive when someone is adding, appending, or maybe there's a put request, there's a get request. But if someone is using a delete request, I'll be focusing on that.
Interesting.
And it will eliminate 99% of your alerts. Otherwise, there's so much alerts, you don't know where to start, what to see, what not to see.
Fair. And I'll take that because, Alex, I want to go to you and then to Jonathan. Alex, when you're dealing with, and yes, you definitely need beer when you're on the briefing, if that is beer.
No, this is just fresh water.
We believe you. We definitely believe
Sure,
you.
we do.
When you have that can and on the front at Operation Defend the North as well, we believe you. Oh, now John has a drink too. But for John, it's probably Coca-Cola. Anyways, Alex. So I want to extend from what Mirza and John said. You're on the stage, Operation Defend the North, whether in Vancouver, whether in Calgary. The first module is detection. I'm going to go through all of them in whatever way I can. First module is detection. And then by the time containment comes along, you've declared that there is an incident. And then you have, the fictitious SOC played by Shrey and other individuals pushing a variety of logs at you, telling you all the different things. But you don't have, like Mirza just said that, there's so many events, so many logs. And then I start to prioritize. But you don't have the luxury of time, especially at Operation Defend the North. You got to move very, very quickly. How exactly do you do that at that time? A lot of it is scripted. A lot of it is staged to a degree where we know sort of where the attack is going as those who have written the incident. But in real time, you don't have the luxury of time. Systems are down. Things are happening. How do you prioritize in those high-stress situations?
So, if my voice goes, I'm eating gummy bears that are laced with hot spice. And
we believe you again.
One got
when
me.
he said laced with, I was waiting to hear what it was going to be laced with.
My kid loves these things, surprisingly. Okay, so a lot of what I embed into the scenario and a lot of the chaos I try to create is that for all the whiz bang technology that's out there that does sort of sell us on a utopian dream of blue team bliss, the fact is that even very mature organizations don't have all their tools working together. Not all the tools are perfectly tuned. Certainly we've evolved since when I was in a SOC, which was many moons ago, where I did feel like I was grabbing a cup and sticking it in a waterfall trying to get a drink of water. And that's because SIM came around, because there was a time before SIM, which was god awful. So SIM is intended to simplify that, but even then, most organizations buy SIM, but they don't do the follow through to have a continuous improvement plan to really optimize the SIM to get all the value out of it. That said, something I implemented about 10 years ago, to be honest, but I would imagine it's still probably pretty legit strategy. Is the problem is that you'll have your SIM with all your pre-built use cases, which likely creates more noise than signal because it needs to be tuned. And then you just have all your SOC analysts being ticket monkeys all day, every day. And that's why there's such a turnover in that space. So something I implemented in one of the government SOCs was essentially 2 ticket queues. We had a reactive and a proactive. So reactive were things that we knew. So just as Mirza says, is we know what good looks like, so we want to alert outside of that, which is actually sort of hard to detect when something doesn't happen. So if something good doesn't happen, making use cases like that can be a challenge as well. But essentially the things that these things shouldn't fire, and if they do fire, humans on it, investigate, prioritize, etc. But there's still that anxiety that you're going to miss something because there's you're collecting 10,000 EPS right now, 10,000 events per second. There's got to be other stuff in there than just this small subset of what we care about. And that's great, because if your SOC analysts aren't chasing after false positives and things that we just have not figured out how to tune, or worse, we just don't have a tuning process, we have this other queue that may take use cases that are pre-built and some of the use cases that we're developing and stuff like that. And they look at it from a macro perspective, not at an atomic alert perspective. And with all the tooling that you can get out of a SIM, you now get to visualize this massive amount of data and do what security analysts do best, is they analyze. And really this has evolved to what they call threat hunting now. But giving the analysts time back, we found we got so much more value, and we just had essentially a development cycle of bringing those use cases. So from a preventative and proactive perspective, that's the plan. Now I'll get back to your question, Ali. It is a matter of everyone's yelling at you for answers. There's 100 things that you can look at right now on your dashboard. Like, what do you prioritize? And I guess it's going to be a balance of criticality, like what is it affecting, but also what you trust the most. So some tools are just going to be more accurate than others, and some will be more truthful. So it is finding that balance of, trying to prioritize. If you have 100 alerts that you need to start sifting through, which ones I would probably put those two lenses on.
Thank you for that, Alex. And I have a lot of pointed questions at that, but I'll bring that up a little bit later on because, Jonathan, I'm going to take something which was asked to me. I think it was in Vancouver or Calgary. I don't entirely remember, but at one of the ODTNs. So you just heard Alex, and he's talked about all of these. You have your prioritizations of tickets, and your SOC analysts are looking at your CM, analyzing for you, yada yada yada. But one of the things that happens at ODTN is your SOC analyst, which in this case, or the lead for the SOC tends to be someone from CyberX, that's Shrey, alongside Alex. Then somebody else might play a technical role. They end up being at the same table during ODTN with the CFO. Could be the privacy officer, could be the communications officer. And suddenly now the CFO also, especially if that CFO is Octavia Howell, she's going to ask questions to the SOC.
Yeah.
How real is that? Because someone asked me, does that really happen? That you'll all be in the war room together? Or would, let's say, if Mirza or John is the CISO, wouldn't they be protecting their SOC analysts from interrogation from the CFO? Your thoughts, Jonathan?
Yeah, I can't answer necessarily on behalf of other companies, but I can say definitely I've seen that happen at Jane. We've got the two co-CEOs, and they're right in the mix, asking pointed questions. How do we know this? What gives you confidence that there isn't something else? So obviously, you as the manager, you want to protect them from too much criticism, I guess, and really establish psychological safety. I think that's actually one of the key parts of being right in the mix, that obviously you want to do as much as you can ahead of time to establish that. And I think actually this is, in my mind, this is the value of an exercise like ODTN, is that it allows you to go through and feel what you might feel in those times, which there's an emotional reaction that happens when something bad takes place. Like you have a gut reaction, like, oh shit. I don't know allowed to swear here, but that's what you're thinking anyways.
To swear. John Pinard swears all the time. The cupboard behind him, has a lot of secrets there. You can swear.
I could say something, but I won't, Ali.
That's the thing though. There's this emotional thing that can happen in these moments. And so I think there is a lot of value in going through the simulation of those things to prepare for, especially some of the folks that might not be accustomed to being in those spots around, CFO is poking questions at these things. And so I think there's a lot of value in running through that, because at least for me, I've definitely seen that happen at Jane.
Fair enough. And I have to ask you, what
jump in
what
for
mic
one
is
sec,
that?
Ali?
No, John, you cannot jump in. Well, Jonathan, after you tell me what mic you have, then John will jump in.
This is the blue snowball ice, procured via Facebook Marketplace. It was nice and cheap, and the sound was somewhat decent.
You
So
trust the supply
Works
chain
well.
called Facebook Marketplace?
that's right.
And I'll leave it at that. John, jump for us. Let's go.
I just wanted to throw my 2 cents worth in when you were talking about, should you have all of these people in the same room so that they can attack the CISO? And realistically, I mean, thank God, I've only actually had the pleasure of having to sit through one instance in my entire career of, in this case, it was a ransomware attack. But what we did, and it was everybody, not those that were, fingers on the keyboard, but all of the key players, including CISO level and CFO and so forth, were all in the war room. And the one benefit to that is that when you're having discussions, when you're talking to third parties, or when you're bringing the people with the their hands on the keyboards into the room, everybody hears the same thing. So, there's a common message across to everybody. So it's not that, something that gets brought up with one person in the room doesn't happen to get conveyed to somebody else, because the last thing you need, everything happens quickly and things can go south very quickly. And so you need to make sure that all the key players are hearing the same thing.
I'll add the by the book is that incident responders, the technical hands-on keyboard, should be isolated.
Yes.
Whether I think it's a SAN standard or maybe it's the NIST standard, but like incident handler, which is now I guess being renamed to incident commander these days, is that firewall between. I do love to have a CEO care about the technical, but to pull out my CIS book, I think the Bell Appadula model of information integrity. I think that I'm totally going to get mixed up on those models because I've only ever had to use them once, and it was for the exam. But there is a concept of like how communication flows, and you want to make sure that CEO is following chain of command so that the right instructions are given to the technical team. I brought it up on previous calls, but like when the CEO pushes too hard on the technical people to recover before they're ready, there's a strong chance that they're going to get right back into containment efforts quickly because the threat wasn't fully eradicated and they recovered poorly. So, these people that are having to look at needles in piles of needles need total isolation, probably some Red Bull, but certainly not being part of that other conversation. But on the other side of that incident handler, yes, it is a team sport. There's more tasks than there are people and time. And there's likely, competing priorities, stakeholders that need to work together. So like having a war room, that's the sense of the room, is necessary. But those technical people definitely need to not be part of those conversations and focus what we do best.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, I was going to say too, I think I agree, Alex, as much as you can to shield them from that and to have someone act as the conduit there, because there's actually like almost like an imaginative exercise. You're asking them to go in. Yes, they're analysts, and so you don't think about them in terms of like creative ability often, but you are asking them to put on a really different hat to think about what might that little log item represent, and then to go from there and expand that outwards to try and paint a picture of what might be happening in the system, especially from a threat actor. And so that does require like a lot of isolation and like keeping them away from the pressure of like, find this thing right now kind of idea.
Yeah. So I want to work with this. Yeah, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Sorry, Ali. I wanted to comment. Alex, you had talked before about the CEO peppering the CISO and so forth. I think one of the critical things for the war room or for the key players involved is for them all to realize, in this case, the CEO is not the person in charge, or shouldn't be, right? There is an individual that is delegated as the person in charge to run an incident, and it's not the CEO, or it sure as hell should not be. So they may be at the table.
That's a really good point to like actually have that at your tabletops, where the CEO needs to not relinquish control, but accept that we're all going to have bad decisions to make, but let's have the most qualified people making them. Yes. And while the CEO is the ultimate risk owner and arguably could pull the trump card, but like at the end of the day, a good leader does know when to step aside. And but at the same time, that CISO and also the middle management below them before it gets to the purely technical team needs to communicate why it's not a good idea to turn the things on right now. Like why we believe we need 6 more hours and things like that. And it's important to communicate that. But again, I'm referencing an example where the CEO went to the incident responders directly and just said, "Yeah, bring the system back online now. We're losing too much money," and got an extra couple days of ransom.
Well,
But here's the thing. I totally agree. You cannot dictate CEO that that's not your job. So that's one thing. So what I will do, like it happened like a couple of times, so in different experiences in different companies, I'll keep my team separate in a room where they can laser focus on what they are doing, backing them 24/7. I'll be sitting with them, helping them what to do. When I go out and talking to the other, or going to the other war room where all the CEOs and all the big sharks there, and they have a laser sharp teeth, and they are trying to bite me, I will take it. You know what? Because that's my job. I have to absorb the pressure and should not be transferring to my team. I will listen and I will say, okay, let me figure it out. What I'll do, like we have a really good plan. We have a communication team. We have a incident coordinator. So CEO has to, he or she has to communicate to the top management or to the stakeholders or to the board of directors. So she or he will be, CEO will be pressurizing what about the information. So instead of she or he will be asking me, I think every half an hour, I'll be updating her as well. So instead of she coming back and yell at me, I'll giving them all the information so she'll be calm and contained.
So I wanna just take this a little bit, right? So I get it, like you're Evander Holyfield and you're ready to get like somebody to bite off your ear. I get all of those things, okay? But, and this is a pointed question. Anybody who wants to take it on, and again, I'm just going off memory, certain things that people asked me. So all of you are all technical leaders. Forget your role within ODTN, but let's say you're in this situation. You've got all this evidence about what's going on in real time. Do you withhold any pieces of evidence during the incident response?
From who?
From your CEO, from the non-technical folks at the table?
If you ask me, I'll just wait for the complete picture because one piece of information may translate to something else. We can,
yeah.
if I'm updating every hour because it's a incident and I have to update every hour, then I'll giving them some information, maybe some clue, but not the full information until I have the full picture.
John?
And I don't think I would withhold information, but I think I would sort of what Mirza is saying is that I think I would summarize it into a this hour's story to convey that message rather than give them specific information, because whether it's the CEO or somebody else may hear that one piece of information and make a decision based on that where it may have nothing to do. I mean, it goes back to Alex's comment about trying to bring systems back up too soon, that it looks like we got rid of the ransomware, and the CEO going, well, then let's bring everything back up again. But I know there's been at least a couple of stories that I've heard recently where people did that, and lo and behold, they didn't get it all, and it brought everything back down again and ended up having them down longer than it would have been had they kept it down to make sure that everything was clean in the first place. So I think giving them the overall picture at a higher level is probably the message that I would go with, similar to what Mirza said, rather than giving all the details. So I'm not withholding information. I'm just summarizing it before I give it to them.
Ali, so one more thing, like the reason behind it, it's not about hiding because the reason behind it is the perception. My understanding of the information is different than the CEO. So, and I know the people, and I know if I say something, it may translate into different thing. And it happens every single time. Even though you communicate really well, but there's a there's a interpretation is always going to be like on the receiving end. So I will be careful in sharing what I said earlier.
Evidence before ego. Jonathan, were you going to jump in with something?
Yeah, I was gonna say just as a slight tweak is that I think I would recommend knowing your audience well. Like I think the reality is that most business CEOs won't have enough depth, and so you've got to be careful about what you go into, because like a technical comment that you could that might make around like some like imperfect or just partial information for sure has the potential of spinning things off. I know for sure, like one of our co-CEOs, he wrote most of the underlying code in the original Jane app, and so has deep technical knowledge. And so I think for him, I would definitely want to talk through a lot of those things, because without it, I could see him actually not trusting. Like, it feels like you're only giving me a partial story here, Jonathan. So with him, for sure, I would have like a lot more freedom to kind of chat through and even just articulate like, this is just partial. Let me tell you what we know so far, and that. But that's where I'm like, I think you have to judge your audience a bit.
Yeah, you're in a very unique situation. That there's not many CEOs that I know that actually have written code. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
they are more dangerous because they know the both sides.
They know too much.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of knowing too much, because I'm going to work with that, Alex, this is the part where I want to come back to you. Now, regardless of whether it was Vancouver or Calgary, one of the things that consistently started coming up, and yes, you've taken the role of chaos engineer, but you're speaking from a security perspective, this idea of knowing too much. One thing that I noticed you were doing a lot is, while you kept guiding the SOC and Shrey, of course, to look at different logs, and I was feeding different conversations around the logs, some of the activities and events that we were noticing, some of the metadata that was starting to come in, non-technical and technical. You constantly started bringing people back to, we got to know how the system operates, knowing the architecture, knowing how the system operates. And again, I'm just going off memory right now, some of the questions that were asked to me across multiple ODTMs. But Alex, if you're that CISO that's walked in and a scenario has happened day 2, day 3 of your position, you don't know all of the architecture and the system in and out. You're just figuring out where the washrooms are. How much of a disadvantage, and how do you deal with that situation? Because again, none of these incidents, as I said in a previous briefing, none of these incidents come with a save the date card.
No, they don't. I think if you're the new guy, you get actually a lot of opportunity to start fresh and build relationships, both with your technical team as well as with your executive peers. So not necessarily knowing that means that you are going to be aggressively trying to acquire that knowledge and asking the right questions and having a good understanding of the business, assuming a breach happened day 2 or 3 of that, which I'm sure has happened, unfortunately, to some new hire. Certainly more context is king, and it inhibits your ability to prioritize and hold conversations, be that sort of bastion between the technical team doing the response and the business and whatnot. But somebody that actually has the experience still would be able to play a very vital role in being that broker of communication, knowledge, and decisions, right? Like these are decisions that we have to make. They suck. One is slightly worse than the other, so let's do the slightly less terrible one. And then it's repeat. Observe, how did that work? Are we still where we're at? What's the next step? So I don't think not knowing the business, but certainly there's context that you need to build over time, and people that will work at a company. Jonathan's prime example, been at a company for so long, he does know where all the hidden libraries are and whatnot, right? That takes years of experience to know how a system works. You're not going to get that in 1 or 2 years of being higher, and arguably a CISO is only around for 7. So I'm on the fence. I don't think it matters that much. I think it's the experience and being able to bring that experience to broker going through that incident with both executives and the team.
I also think it's critical to be able to think on your feet. That, you know, this is a cyber incident, and whether it's retail or manufacturing or anything, a cyber incident at its core is going to be similar. There are going to be some differences depending on industry, and you have to expect or rely on the other people in the war room or other people that you can get access to help with those, I'll call it industry specific items. But presumably, you know, your CISO and your cyber team have enough experience or knowledge about how to manage cyber related items that should give you, I don't know, 60 to 80% of the protection or of the coverage.
I respect that, and and again, it's all coming to me like it's beaming down into my head. I'm remembering all these conversations that I had at Operation Defend. Now, the truth is that once I'm done 5 sessions, and so to the case with Alex, you really don't want to talk to a lot of people. But then a lot of people WhatsApp and they text, and they leave you these little nuggets of information. There was one conversation I remember having, and I honestly don't remember if this was this year or last. But Jonathan, I want to ask this to you. You're in an incident, all right? And John mentioned, you have other individuals with experience, etc. The CISO, the person leading to an incident, is a human being, has connections, has contacts, has friends, fellow CISOs. When you're in the heart of an incident and you have, let's say, someone like an Alex or a Mirza or a John, close friends of yours, who know their stuff but are not directly affiliated with your company, do you reach out to them during those times? And safe to do so? Disclosing a little bit of detail, thinking you have a cone of silence? Do you rely on those things sometimes?
Yeah, I'll speak for myself again. I've reached out to some folks that I've met through different training programs, and you have to be judicious about what details you share, obviously. But I think this is actually one of the benefits, I think, of like events like ODTN is to connect with other leaders and other individuals, because there is wisdom to be gleaned from others who've gone through it. And I think especially when you're like in the weeds of things, it's really hard sometimes to pull back out and ask the right questions about what's happening, particularly when you're stuck. And so I think there is value in having like a lifeline, or what I can't remember that quiz show from years
Phone
ago.
a friend.
You got to phone a friend along the way, and have I think you've got to establish some of those things in advance. It's pretty hard in the moment if you don't have trusted connections, but certainly is the value of building networks to be able to pull from them in the moments when you really need to.
But see, yeah, go ahead, Mirza, please. Yeah, don't say Ali, can I just jump in?
Okay.
You make my life easier, buddy.
Okay. So there's 2 things. One, when you talk about Alex, about the 3 days you join the meeting, you join the organization, the incident. What I'll do is I will partnership of one of what I seems to be my friend. I will try to close the relationship, like making a partner, and channel through all the information from him or her. So that, because I have no one in 3 days, I cannot establish a connection. So I'll partner with something and try to leverage that information. That's one. Second, Jonathan, it's talking about calling a friend. Yes, definitely, Ali, 110%. I experienced in few incidents, it was like a initial incident and we contained. But every time you talk to someone, that someone knows the stuff, you ask them, like you just share some of the knowledge. Not you don't have to disclose everything. You just talk through, and then just one one sentence out of 10 minutes talk, and it's a done deal. It will give you a different totally perspective that you were not thinking about it, and it helps a lot, 100%. So obviously, and it's not like I have to make a connection, but obviously OTDN is the best. Like CyberX is the platform where we can get together, we can talk, we can, and again, like after OTDN, it's our job to maintain the relationship. And I
Man,
love it.
drinking
And
Coca-Cola, coffee, everything in one shot, eh, John?
Hey, I gotta keep the CyberX thing around, you know.
Well, Mirza, I have a story. I do rely on a friend, and I call him quite often. His name is John Bernard. But every time I go to him for incident-related advice, he sends me an invoice, and
oh,
that's the problem with.
Ouch. Ouch.
I joke. But John, you
I
were
Anyway,
going to
thought
say
I thought you talk about the
yeah,
beer.
yeah, exactly. But no, I was going to say, and all joking aside, when I show this, I have to say, and Ali, don't let this go to your head, but joining CyberX almost 6 years ago is, from a cybersecurity standpoint, in my role, is probably one of the best things that I've ever done, because nobody, I don't care who you are, not even Dr. Ali Hirji, knows everything as it relates to cybersecurity. And having connections with other individuals that you can reach out to and say, hey, this is happening, can't figure it out, we've tried this and this and this, do you have any ideas? Sometimes talking to somebody else that you know and can trust, and that has some intelligence in this area, helps to just kind of jumpstart your brain to go, oh, wait a second, what about thinking about this? Or have we looked at this? I don't think anybody can expect to be able to climb that hill without people helping them along.
One of our advisors and players out of Calgary founded the Mining and Metals ISAC, and ISACs are sort of the epitome of what we're talking about. And particularly in the mining and metals sector, to quote an old boss when I did work at a mining company, we're in the business of breaking rocks, not securing networks. So that is the starting point of that industry when we're talking about cybersecurity. So there's a point where the company is big enough and is profitable enough that they do actually start putting a little bit more effort into securing their IT and OT. But there is that earlier stage where they're not. And having those small junior miners be part of those ISACs allows them to share in a safe space tips and tricks. And they're leveraging Rob, who is now CISO in residence of the ISAC, decades, like a decade of mining CISO experience, but also other decades of cybersecurity in general. So it's a win-win when you're part of those communities.
Yeah,
For sure.
and I'll take this a step further and say, look, it's the ISACs, it's the communities of practice that that you can be a part of, but at the same time, it's also I think sometimes just psychologically being able to have that community where you can talk through the situation that you're in. The industry has a very, very sad way sometimes of calling things out when incidents happen. Then you get a number of calls from different vendors. Well, if you had our product, this wouldn't have happened. Yeah, for sure, it wouldn't have happened. And those, I'm not saying that people do it, but there are quite a few that end up sort of giving you that ethos in a conversation, which can put you down. And I think, since you mentioned Rob, Alex, Rob's been a huge advocate for mental health for security folks. Yeah. And I'll say this to the audience that's watching. We have about 11 to 12 minutes to go. There are moments when at ODTN, even though it's fictitious, you can see people get stressed out. You'll see folks say, I don't have enough information. What am I supposed to do? And I try my best to sort of give them a little bit more. But at the end of the day, I have to pause for a second and say, that's reality. Sometimes these situations happen and you don't have all of the information. So it's a very real thing. Now, I always say this to my students that fast hands need steady minds. you have your SOCs, your SOC analysts, you have your junior investigators, tier 1, etc., gathering all of this information for you, helping you make sense of things by throwing a lot of evidence at you. But there's a lot of anxiety and there's a lot of push to get things to you so that you can move ahead. How do you keep your team steady during such moments? Because you're, as you said, if you're playing the role of an incident commander, which often CISO might end up having to take on during that incident, how do you keep your team steady during these moments? Because you see this a lot in Operation Defend the North, and folks don't see this on screen, but there'll be Alex, myself, and a couple of others on a signal group saying, well, what is this showing and what is that showing? And there's a lot of things that are happening in real time. How do you maintain a steady hand during these incidents with the rest of your team? Jonathan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think it goes back to really like some like basic human interaction things, like checking in with folks, like how are you doing? Do you need to go for a walk? Like, do you need a 15-minute break? And even just giving people the space to just step out. Like I was saying earlier, like a lot of the work that we're asking people to do is actually like really imaginative, creative work. And so as people get fatigued mentally, especially, that it's really hard to do that. And so I think even some folks I've seen just are really good at intuitively doing this. I don't think I am, and so I'm the kind of person that almost has to like put in automated reminders to remind myself to go and like ask the team, how, like, are we doing okay? How are we doing this at this? And even in some cases to be like, hey, like it's 11 o'clock at night. Why don't we shut it down for now and come back with fresh brains in the morning? Like, I think we'll actually get further ahead. Yeah, I think it's really using your powers of observation for where the team's at.
And I want to jump in there, Jonathan, because you bring up a good point. We sort of represent Operation Defend the North as a very linear event, and we are trying, or incident, and we are trying to represent that it is multiple days, but we don't actually talk about, are we sending people home? And part of that, like the human resource side of incidents, is you want, the people that are hands on keyboard, generally thrive on this stuff and are excited. You don't want to get to the point where you're forcing them to stay because you're getting nothing out of them. They're going to start dropping balls. They're going to be, making mistakes. So, certainly we want to care about our people, but the business should also understand the benefit of not losing your resources. And again, this is an enterprise risk management problem of making sure that we either are comfortable getting to a steady state so that we can go home at 11 p.m. and see at 7, or giving the people the comfort that, hey, you can go home right now if you want. Most of the time they won't, right? Like they want to stay till the bitter end. They will do, full 24 hours, maybe even 36 hours of no sleep, which again is diminishing return on value to the business.
Yeah.
But like you never want to push them to not want to be there, is I think what I'm saying, but giving them the comfort to know that they can go home, because it's not about just their exhaustion. Like they also have kids that like they now have to juggle if they need to be picked up from school. We do generally try to have lives outside of work, and incidents do interrupt that. And, there's some people that are like, I will drop everything to solve this problem. And those are our cyber heroes, but we can't expect that from everyone.
But there's one more thing. Yes, we are flexible and we need people to be on site or maybe working remotely 24/7. I totally agree with you that, okay, so everybody cannot manage the 24/7 or they have to do something. If there's a limitation, yes, but obviously we are flexible. Like I think in Canada, we have a really good common sense and we have a really good work-life balance. But in these type of scenarios, we have to be laser focused. What I would do as a leader, if push come to shove, there is no other option, someone has to go, okay, let's go and come back. But at the same time, what I'll do, I'll stay with my team 24/7. I will provide them the comfort. I will give them the dinner, the lunch, the blanket. If they need to sleep, they'll sleep. I'll show them that I'm with you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not let you down. If you don't find anything, no worries. Just do your best. And what I'll do is give them some maybe tell them, okay, after the incident, you'll take a week off, something like this. We have to encourage them because we have to show them that your weightage and your value means a lot to the team and to the organization. Once you show them and encourage them, okay, if something happens, don't worry, it's an incident, anybody can experience. The good thing is, and Ali, I'm and I think everybody should agree, in any incident, organization always get up to their feet faster when they keep calm. When there is a
Good.
panic on the security
Yep.
department, yeah, it's a mess.
The one thing
Until
I'd
you
like to,
realize that the threat comes from your actual team and the insider is on your team, that's when they're not getting the week off. That's when they're going to jail.
Yeah,
That's a
Yeah.
separate discussion.
can I
John, back
jump
to
in
you.
for one sec?
Sure.
So just kind of tying into what Jonathan was talking about, kind of not forcing, but making sure that when people are exhausted, send them home. I just wanted to say that that's not only at the end of the day, right? Like you may be going in and checking on your technical staff, or it could actually be leaders that are at the war room table that you go, you know what? Go take 5 minute break. Go just clear your head, go get some fresh air, something to pull yourself away from it because it'll help to clear your head a bit so that when you come back, it may be almost like getting a fresh set of eyes. Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's also critical. Um, I don't want to call it a buddy program, but something like that, that if people have, I mean, we talked about, phoning a friend and things that whether it's phoning a friend or whether it's somebody that's on the team, having the ability to, kind of pull yourself away from the what's going on for a minute and sitting down and just even having a one-on-one conversation with somebody about what's going on or about what you've tried to fix it or what it could potentially be. I think it just it's like giving your head a shake when you're sitting there in the middle of it, and it gives you a chance to have a different perspective of it.
Yeah, I'll take that. And one of the things that I've learned being to a couple of incidents is that if your teams are prepared, you're not necessarily improvising, you're executing.
Yep.
And you have plans that you're executing against. And if you are in a situation where it is taking its toll, the one thing I've learned is leading certain teams is that as leader, everybody has different personalities, but you really got to know for your team members what is one thing that brings them a smile. What is one thing that brings them a little bit of contentment, and you see that they're really jazzed up about. One of the things that I've noticed is I have a few individuals who are quite spiritual. So I've made sure that in the room that in our area we do have a meditation space. So if they need to go and pray, they need to go and do something of that nature. Just having that availability and that accessibility, it changes. In that moment of intense stress that you're going through during an incident. And a lot of folks have asked me that when I'm running Operation Defend the North, do I do it like forcefully, that I try to add in some humor and try to make a joke or two just to keep the conversation going? But I think it's strategic. I mean, it happens. Every moderator, some folks are just they can do it naturally. It happens to me, albeit naturally, but it's also strategic because you need to break that stress. You need to break that. Okay, what's next? What's next? And get people to just get distracted just for a moment. It's a healthy little bit of distraction. We have about 4 minutes to go. I've enjoyed this conversation as I always do. And I think some of the ideas that I wanted to just get out in terms of the questions I was asked around incident response, I think we went through most of it. But I do have one off the cuff question for all of you. And I'm sure as leaders and seasoned leaders, you may have a response to this. Whoever wants to go first, is there a book that you would recommend to folks? Or a media asset? Now he's going to look at his bookshelf.
Yeah, Alex is looking up on his shelf.
Is there a book or a media?
How much time do you have?
A media asset, a documentary, or something that you would recommend to someone to watch as they're preparing to come in? We have a lot of folks coming in for their first Operation Defend the North on December 4th. Any books, movies that you would recommend?
Well, War Game is one that I saw over
Yeah.
the summer that, said, hey, we should start borrowing some of those ideas, because it wasn't a cyber war game, but or incident, but nonetheless, how it was orchestrated and whatnot was really good. That gave me some understanding
War
of
Game.
behind the
That's
scenes.
one. Who wants to go next? John's like, I read this book called Harry Potter.
No.
Read it.
No, I'm trying to think. I don't know, maybe because it's late in the day, I'm drawing a blank on anything specific that I think in general people need to stay apprised even of the news. I mean, one of the things that I have to say that for me that I find probably the most educating is I'll call it learning from other people's mistakes.
Yeah.
Right? Is hearing about other incidents that have taken place, and A, how did they get into that situation? B, what did they do to resolve the problem? And C, kind of asking myself and my colleagues, were there things that could have been done differently to have gotten them out of that sooner?
Yeah, and I think things like
Exactly.
Beeping Computer, Darknet Diaries are all
Mm.
interesting little feeds to have coming in, and
Mhm.
definitely gives you some things to be abreast of. So yeah, staying current, very important. Mirza.
But there's one thing if you talk about the movie, that's one of my favorite movie, Live Free or Die Hard,
Hmm.
where it's not about learning, but like it's about how people can manipulate everything. Like they can get access, not need to be like 10 attempts. They just need the password. They just know the password. Like there's something. So if there's one thing that I have to give to the audience is it should not be a perfect plan. Just come up
Hmm.
with something that makes sense and just go through it. Unfortunately or unfortunately, when you go through the incident, you will know the gaps. Nobody can tell you. You will know the gap, then you will start improving. But start with what makes sense and move on.
All
And be
right,
prepared to improvise.
be prepared. Sure, Jonathan.
I'd recommend The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. It's a great book around what creates successful cultures. And he focuses on three things, basically how to create a sense of belonging by building safety, how to use vulnerability to build trust, and then how to build a clear sense of purpose. And he said those three things, sense of belonging, shared vulnerability, clear sense of purpose, creates incredible culture. And he highlights a bunch of things from like business groups to, I think it was the San Antonio Spurs NBA team, and the
Interesting.
incredible winning record that they had. Was one of the more enlightening books I had, and a great read as well too. I highly recommend.
Sounds good. From my perspective, I would recommend folks that if you have the time, it's on Netflix, watch House of Dynamite. And the reason I recommend watching House of Dynamite is, and I'll just take 30 seconds and summarize it for you. Obviously, it's fictitious, but there is a warhead, a nuclear warhead by the looks of it, a payload that's traversing the atmosphere and headed towards the United States. It's they cannot intercept it, and the movie does not show you the after effects of the payload, but it actually shows you three different perspectives on how, as that attack is coming towards the United States, how three different organizations within the government view that scenario. From those on the ground who are trying to intercept it and fail, from those who have to make a decision on what the response is going to be, and then from the president's perspective on, well, what am I actually going to do? And here's what's interesting. The president, sitting in one of the scenes towards the end, says, I've only seen these books and these playbooks for all but 1 hour. I've been trained for hours and hours on what to do if the judge for the Supreme Court or whatever it is dies. I've been trained on what to do if the judge who's dead comes back from the dead and wants his job back or her job back or their job back. But I actually don't know what to do on what our options and the right option is should this attack be successful and we have to respond. Talk about not knowing what you do not know. And that moment when the president has to make that decision, the movie ends at that point, is truly the drama that you begin to see playing out in Operation Defend the North. Well, with that, and right on time, from all of us bearded baboons, thank you so much for spending time with us and joining us for the briefing. In exactly 2 weeks, we are going to be culminating the 2025 series of Operation Defend the North in Toronto. If you haven't got your tickets yet, whether that's virtually or in person, there are still some tickets available. Go to cyberx.org to pick up your tickets. And with that, I want to thank all of you for your time. Wishing you all, firstly, thanking all of my guests, but also thanking all of you for joining online. Wishing you all a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next week with the next edition of The Briefing. Take care, stay safe, and we'll see you next week.